Arizona football has a big game against NAU, and while they should win, there are a lot of things that we do need to keep an eye on in this game.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for giving it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. This show is brought to you by Gametime. Check it out. All kinds of people are using Gametime. They're using Gametime to get to games. They're using Gametime for tickets, all kinds of different things. Download the Gametime app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Okay, now, we've got a lot to get to this show. First and foremost, Arizona NAU. Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, Arizona should destroy NAU. Yes, they should. And if we're sitting here tomorrow talking about it and they haven't, then there's a massive, massive issue that occurred. But there are things that we can definitely take away from this. First of all, NAU has definitely kind of revamped their entire team. He brought in a bunch of different players, some guys that were committed to Ohio State at one time, Devon Hubbard, Ty Pennington, et cetera, et cetera. This comes down to me. It's very, very simple, though. Arizona needs to destroy NAU. We don't even really need to preview NAU per se. This is more about what Arizona does. Now, Duane Akina has talked about it, and he said the big thing that the big thing with this team is you need to be able to just take care of your responsibilities. And when he said that, he's talking about containment. A big part of Arizona's problem was the lack of containment. And I think that that's something that that's something that a lot of people need to understand. Arizona, I think a lot of those issues were correctable that you saw against New Mexico. First of all, Devin Dampier is a good football player. We need to remember that. He is I do not believe he will be at New Mexico next year, and I believe he'll be at a better place. He's fast. He can move around. That being said, this team also lost to Montana State, so we can't sit here and say that this is a good team. And they were able to essentially do what they wanted against Arizona in that first half. Now, in the second half, it got a lot better. But that first half was an atrocity. And I think you look at the coaching staff, and I think that they believe that this is not a massive deal because it is correctable. And if it's correctable, obviously Arizona will be in good shape. Now, what would have really worried me is if NAU was just running the ball right at New Mexico was just running the ball right at Arizona and just kind of pushing them off and that wasn't the case. But again, there are certain things in football you've got to be able to contain the edges, and Arizona had none of that. And it went across the board from your ends to Jacob Manu, who you certainly don't expect that to be the case. And again, that just can't happen again. So I would look for Arizona to have a very, very focused defense. Duane Akina has mentioned this many times that he has enough talent to be able to win with. And that is something that, coaches like that, they generally don't say if they don't mean it because you're putting the onus on you. Now, if there's no talent there, then generally coaches aren't going to say something to that effect. So you got to keep that in mind. But Arizona needs to absolutely destroy NAU, and it starts in the trenches. Need a big game out of Trey Smith. Need a big game out of Tai Uiagalelei off the edge. Both those guys have to be in that NAU backfield, and they have to be able to, again, just be able to make plays back there. Up front, I think Chuba, Isaiah Johnson are more than fine. I have no problem with that. Again, both really big dudes, and I think that they're both pretty much in pretty good shape. And one thing about it too is that Arizona is you've got players. We've talked about it before. Do you have a ton of depth in the trenches? We're going to find that one out. Bear Anderson obviously out for a while. I think I was a little surprised too that Owen Goss didn't play more, especially with as well as Owen Goss had played during camp. We'll see if that continues. And on the secondary. Again, I get that you're not really trying to showcase a ton of different, how do I put this, looks and whatnot, because you got Kansas State. But at some point, you've also got to get right. You've also got to know that, man, we need to be able to get right for this game. And I think that's where Arizona is going to You're going to find out really quickly. I'd love to see some more press coverage because that's always been something that Duane Akina has been really big on. And again, a Takario Davis, for example, can't be doing dumb things. That's the other thing. Arizona did a lot of dumb things against New Mexico. You got a ton of penalties, which you just can't really have. And like, again, somebody like Takario Davis, who's a very, very good football player, getting penalties that getting personal fouls that just should never really happen. And again, that's kind of where it's at, I think, with this team. Just take care of what you could control. Again, Arizona is going to go into some games where the talent on the other side is going to be equal. And, I'm looking at a Utah or somebody like that. But the one thing you can't do is you can't let other teams basically control what you are going to do. And that's kind of what Arizona did, to be quite frank. So again, that's it. It's going to be a big part. This is going to be very much on the defense to be able to contain this. And if they contain this, I think that Arizona, it will be in good shape. We're going to talk about the offense here in a second, but first, game time. You might say to yourself, Mike, I want to be able to get to some of these games, but I don't know how. Well, thanks for asking. Game Time, my friend. Check it out. Game Time. Here's the deal. We all know somebody that has used Game Time. It's like LinkedIn. It's like a one-stop shop. Everybody utilizes it. It's a great tool, and you can get low ticket prices. All that stuff guaranteed immediately. And download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Great stuff there. I know somebody that got into the Alamo Bowl with this last second. People like it. Check it out. Game Time. You will thank me later. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about where Arizona is now when it comes to offense. I got no concerns with this team. Offensively, this team should be dynamite, and I expect them to be dynamite. They have a quarterback in Noah Fifita. He looked the way you expected. Now, again, he missed a couple throws, but I don't expect him to really do that. I mean, this is a guy that relies on precision passing. He's always been that dude. And he talked about it before that, he missed there was definitely an easy one for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt that would have gone for a touchdown where he probably would have finished with over 100 yards in the game. He knows that. A lot of people are talking about honing in on T-Mac, focusing in on T-Mac. I don't really see that. I don't really see that being a problem at all because, again, some of these other dudes, you're going to see Jeremiah Patterson. I believe that he is going to show out sooner than later for Arizona, and the coaching staff has obviously made a real point of that. And you could tell when he returned kicks as well. He's got a next level burst to him. He's got an ability that I think is going to be able to, you're going to see a game where he's going to have over 100 yards on like 3 catches or something like that. That's what he's going to do. He is like I said, he's a very good football player, and he's somebody that I think that we should look at and be like, all right, that's going to be a breakout. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, wait a second here. What about, he only had 1 catch for 8 yards. I don't care about that. That is one of the dumbest arguments that I've ever heard. If you're going to play against a school like NAU, New Mexico, and they are going to single cover the best wide receiver in all of college football, then guess what? You take advantage of that. You go right at them and you make them and you keep going at them. I would have had way more concerns from Arizona if they didn't do that. If they didn't do that, I'd be like, all right, what the heck are we doing here? Stop outthinking yourself. That is something that I can't stand the coaches do when they do outthink themselves. Don't outthink yourself. And again, if NAU does it, I expect Arizona to do the exact same thing. Now, there's going to come a time and place where a school is probably not going to single cover the best wide receiver in the country with no safety help, but that's not going to be but if that's the case, then you keep utilizing it. Same thing with K-State. If K-State is just putting one guy on T-Mac, guess what? Go right at him. It's that simple. It is not that difficult. This is something that is not hard at all to be able to comprehend and to be able to figure out. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. I also think you're going to see the ball spread around more, not because Arizona needs to, but I just think that Noah Fifita knows that he's got other mouths to feed. And in that first game, you also want to show that T-Mac's back. I look for a lot of different guys to get in there and to be able to have some action in place. Also, the tight ends, looking for a big game out of Kean Burnett, looking for a big game out of possibly Sam Olsen. You saw that one catch that Kean Burnett made. It's easy to tell that this dude is going to be there, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of different teams. And then at the running back spot, run the ball. I think that Arizona's running game is one of the more underrated aspects to this entire team. I look for them to run the ball and to be able to, just kind of look back and say, all right, we took care of business there. We are good to go. So again, check that one out. That's what I'm looking for. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what this game means for Kansas State. But first, LinkedIn. Check out LinkedIn, my friends. LinkedIn. All right. Now, here's the deal with LinkedIn. You've got everybody knows somebody that got a job through LinkedIn. You might've got a job through LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, all kinds of good stuff. Again, people hire from LinkedIn, they get jobs from LinkedIn, and, it's just been around. Everybody is on LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn. Maybe that's why I'm sitting in my living room. But either way, check it out. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. You will thank me later. There's a lot of great stuff going on there, as you all know. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what this game means for Kansas State. You want to have good vibes going into the Kansas State game. It's really that simple. Don't outthink yourself here. You want to have good vibes going into that game. And if you have good vibes, then I think it makes things a lot easier for Arizona fans specifically. A big part of the reason why is that Arizona did not look good against New Mexico. There's no other way around it. Defensively, it did not look good. In the second half, it looked better. This is a team that you should absolutely destroy because, again, Kansas State, they got a lot of interesting things there. Obviously, Avery Johnson is one of the fastest quarterbacks in the entire country. He is very good. I'm not sure what kind of passer he is. We're going to continue to find that one out. They've got a really good running game as well. And again, with Chris Kleiman, it is a solid football team. If you don't take care of business, if you go into that game not feeling good about yourself, Kansas State can definitely take advantage. And I think that's something that Arizona fans, you do not want to have occur. You need to be able, I want this game again. This game should be a 57-7 type game. That is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Arizona to absolutely wax NAU. Again, I think you're going to put up a lot of points. That is obviously a great thing, but you're also going to need to be able to take care of the basics. Don't play a clean football game. I think we all know that Arizona's defense is better than that. You still have more than enough pieces to be able to showcase that. So showcase that. That is the big thing. Make sure that you control what you can control. And if that happens, I think Arizona is going to be just fine. Offensively, with Matthew Lotto, that's the one guy to keep an eye on. Again, this is going to be his first career start. And he's got a lot of potential. We talked about it before. A lot of people think he was the most underrated player in Arizona's entire recruiting class. That could easily be the case. Matthew Lotto can move his feet, and he's attacked the weight room. His best football is obviously in front of him. You could certainly be looking at a secondary. You could certainly be looking at a tackle combination next year of Rhino and Matthew Lotto, and this will be a good test. Again, you got Big Jonah moving over to left tackle. Totally get it. And I'm glad that Arizona did that because that's the position that I think he should be playing. But Rhino hopefully back in a couple weeks. And then, but if you're Arizona with Lotto, you just got to be able to get the best out of him you can. And I think that you're in pretty good shape at that point. But this is really simple. Don't do stupid things. Follow the game plan. Again, like Duane Akina says, take care of your responsibilities and let them take care of the rest. And I think Arizona will be in good shape at that point. Okay, now, and then offensively, just continue to put up a ton of points. That is the big thing. Continue to put up a ton of points. Arizona's going to have to score the football, and they're going to have to score the football a lot this season. The offense looked really good. I don't know what anybody's talking about that didn't think it did. So, again, talking about, again, controlling what you can control. All right, now we're going to have a post-game show, obviously, after the game, after hopefully a very good victory for the University of Arizona, which would be very, very nice for the Wildcats. So that will be a big part of this. All right, but as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you on the post-game Go Cats.